Right, I'm going to run through some stock ideas for 20th of January. First one we're going to look at is Bros. Bros is just a watch list idea for now, to be honest with you. We have a rising 5-day moving average here in the next few days as we get into this data here on Tuesday morning. If we can get above the 63.01 level, I think it's a potential purchase with a stop below 61.55, which is a pretty tight stop. I think I've actually wrote that down wrong, but in 61.39, pretty tight stop if it gets going above here, if you do plan to get involved. But got a little bit mixed messages on the daily time frame as well as the weekly time frame. These moving averages are kind of all over the place. We do have a rising 50 with a declining 20, and the 200-day is starting to flatten out. So I think if we can get above this area here, the 30-minute time frame, we could see a potential start to a new upswing, but we have a declining 20, 30, and 42-week moving average on the weekly time frame down here at the bottom. So I would say it's watch list idea and a small position size if it's that trade interests you. The next one we'll look at is WMB. WMB is kind of been in this consolidation range on the weekly time frame. November 2024, it's kind of been chopping around in here. We kind of had a attempted breakout, pulled back in fairly tightly. It rallied up, it's pulled back, and I'm wondering whether or not this is going to be the next move up. We've got the moving average stacked on top of each other, with the green being the 20-week and the orange being the 31-week and the red being the 42-week. So it's starting to look like it could potentially set for the next move higher. Daily time frame, again, we've got 20 below the 50, but they're both are going to continue to rise for the next few days. And then on the shorter term time frame here on the 30-minute time frame, it rallied up, made a higher high above a flat to rising 5-day moving average. And as we get into the data here on Monday, this is where it looks like it's going to continue to rise fairly steeply. So I think you could probably get involved with a stop, with a entry above 61.88 with a stop at $60.14 to begin with, and see if that one gets going. On is the next stock. I traded this a while ago. The weekly time frame looks fairly bullish. It looks like it's potentially moving into a stage 2 uptrend. The daily time frame seems to be stair-stepping above all the moving averages here. It's pulled back in. It kind of had a bit of a shakeout here. On Monday this week, it's rebuilt a little bit. That 5-day moving average will start to rise on Tuesday as we start to get into this next section of data. If we can get above 61.76, I think it's for a half-size position, potentially with a stop below 60.01, which is just below this little one here. Can be a little bit of a choppy stock. It's a 3.3% ATR, but it's just something to keep an eye on, potentially moving into an uptrend. For the semiconductors, the weekly time frame definitely makes it a little bit more bullish. Look at WMB. I know we just looked at that one, not that one. We'll look at OHI, which is, I think, it's a REIT. So this is a little slower moving, 1.83% ATR. It's holding above the volume weighted average price from the recent peak, and it's broken through there on Friday this week. It's above a now flat to rising 5-day moving average. I think if it can get above 44.86, I think it's good with a stop at 44.05, which is right down here. But again, keep in mind it's a pretty slow moving stock, and it is pretty bullish on the weekly time frame, making higher highs and higher lows. HBAN was the next stock I wanted to look at. We're going to have a 5-day moving average here again on Tuesday morning as we start to run into that data. The 3-day moving average is also rising now. We do continue to have a rising 10-day moving average. We're above all the moving averages here. And I think we're above the peak from this low. It's holding on the peak from that recent high. The weekly time frame looks like it's probably going to break further up. And the one thing I'll note here is there's not a lot of, doesn't seem to be a lot of potential resistance into this area. So it could easily push up to 21.55, which would be a couple dollars on a $20 stock, which is almost 10%. So keep that in mind. HBAN looks like it could get going when that 5-day moving average starts to rise. CMA is another one on the long side. Again, 5 moving average, very similar. Just be careful that we do have earnings on Friday this week, and make sure we check earnings on each of these. I forgot to check. The weekly time frame's okay. It's kind of chopping up and down here. Maybe this is got a run up to that $102 mark, back up to kind of where it's found sellers before and sold off. Again, rising 20, 50-day moving average. This is holding above this recent peak right here. I think we've got a rising 5-day moving average on Tuesday. Again, if we can get involved above 92.18 with a stop at 90.25, which is just below this low down here, which is down here, I think that is where I would have my stop initially. And then if it gets going, probably move my stop up fairly quickly to 90.88. There is a few on the short side we'll go through, but nothing necessarily that great for Tuesday. Market's a little bit all over the place from what I can see, but we've got this 4, which is 5-day moving average is starting to roll over. I would like to see a rally probably up to that year to date, which is that black anchored VWAP up to 65.47, and then start to fall back. So I think this one is definitely more of a watch list idea. If you do get involved, I think that your stop would have to be more up around that 66.43 area. Nomad, again, this is another watch list idea. I prefer a rally up to that week to date volume weighted average price in conjunction with the year to date anchor, which is the black 9. And then start to fail, but we're below all the moving averages, all stacked appropriately. Just be aware that earnings is earnings on this one's not till February, so we're good for a little bit, and this looks like it's going to continue on downwards, but I would give it a little bit more time here. It's a pretty small dollar value stock, so keep that in mind. SoFi, this is a bit more of a riskier trade. I'm just going to remove the drawings off this document, but we seem to be holding the anchor from I think it's this gap here. Now, it's found buyers upon that line several times now. If you count all these over here and then count the most recent ones on the daily time frame and even on the 30-minute time frame, you can kind of see most of these stocks seem to be coming down to the 200-day moving average. And I think the 200-day moving average is likely an area where you're going to find potential buyers, because it's also in conjunction with the VWAP off this recent low. So I think for a half size position on a bit of more of a riskier trade, because we have all the declining moving averages, I think you could probably get involved around 25.89ish with a stop just above at 26.83. So if I give it a fairly tight stop, if it gets going below that level, definitely wouldn't want to risk too much on that one. Checkpoint is probably more of a watch list. Again, has declining 20, 50 and 200-day moving average, and it's also declining pretty good on the weekly chart, as you can see down here. It's below all the appropriate volume weighted average prices. It's below the year to date volume weighted average price on the 5-day moving average and week to date. So I think it's also holding below this quite considerably. This one I would want probably just a rally up to from Friday's VWAP, because we did go from 87 to 85, maybe just a brief rally here on Tuesday morning, and then a short below that. Once you get below the daily VWAP, 2-1 entry on that one. Gen is probably the best short setup. It looks like it's just starting to roll over as another potential downtrend. The only problem is the 200-day moving average will actually be flat to rising here unless we get a massive sell-off in the next few days. So it's probably one of the better short ideas, but just be aware of that 200-day moving average will continue to rise. I think, though, if you're going to get involved, it's likely a short below 26.10 with a stop at 26.51. So just short it below this level here. And you could do a stop probably just above this little peak high here, which gives you a little bit above the 5-day moving average. Bentley is another one that looks pretty good. Just be aware the 20-day moving average is going to start curling up over the next few days, but you think you've got a week or two. You got about 5 trading days there before that starts to happen. We just broke through the year-to-date volume weighted average price. We found supply here at the week-to-date, which is that blue line, and that 5-day moving average is starting to decline, and will, because we're starting to get into this data up here. I think you can probably get involved fairly quickly at the gate here at 39.87, which is essentially below this peak here. I wrote these down, but I seem to 39.87. Sorry, that's a stop of 39.87. My apologies. Stop up here at 39.87. You can get involved. I would say probably a 2-1 entry, maybe a little rally on Tuesday morning, and then short it below. Something along the lines of that. And then the other watch list idea is AI, and I think this one needs a bit more of a rally up before it starts to fail over again. Let that 5-day moving average kind of come down a little bit. But that would be all the trade ideas for the 20th of January.